Welcome back to The Beast Within, where we break down the battles we face and the strength we build from these inner battles. Today, we're diving into a challenge that many of us experience but rarely talk about, and that's the isolation beast. We all want to feel understood, but sometimes explaining our struggles feels harder than just carrying them on by ourselves, right? So over time, choosing solitude can feel like the safest path. But is it really? Our guest today, my brother, Jason, knows this balance firsthand. For over 20 years, he's lived with an invisible struggle, one that no one can see, but that has shaped his reality. Like many young men today, he also knows what it feels like to feel lost at a young age, unsure of his path, and trying to figure out his place in this world. Jason has spent the last decade as a teacher, shaping young minds in the classroom while constantly expanding his own. He holds a master's in education from UNLV and currently teaches the 5th grade. Beyond the classroom, he's passionate about sports, travel, video games, writing, and exercise, always pushing himself to learn and grow. But you see, like many men, Jason has faced a silent battle of keeping struggles locked inside. Society tells men to be strong, to handle everything on their own, and to never show weakness. That mindset can lead to walls that feel like they're protecting it at first, but over time, those walls can actually turn into a cage. Through it all, he's built resilience, independence, and a new understanding of what strength really means. Today, we're breaking down that isolation beast, what it takes to break free, and how to turn solitude into strength without losing yourself in the process. With all that in mind, I would love to introduce my brother from the same mother, my bro Jason. Thank you again for being on here with us today, man. I'm excited to dive deep into this, and let's have you break in and tell anybody, a little bit more about yourself and where you're at today.
Yeah, it was a nice intro. Thanks for saying all that. Yeah, you did a good job. I think you said teaching for a decade. I think you said it well. You introduced me well.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And I know you well, so that's why I think this one's gonna flow really well. Is I know everything that my brother stands for and everything that he is as a human. And what I love is he's taken all that knowledge that he's built through resilience over time, and he's created an ability to help younger crowds, the younger youth, overcome some obstacles that he's been through. I want to start this off with a quote that I came up with that I think hits very hard at home. And it goes something like this: loneliness is feeling abandoned, while isolation is choosing solitude because it feels easier than explaining the fight. And so with that quote, how does that hit for you? Obviously everything that you have been through, and we'll dive in deeper on that, but how has it created you to almost isolate yourself from the world and others?
It might be, I don't know. Do you want to start with, I feel like explaining the background might be better first if I,
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and dive into that background. Let's go into a little bit about it.
yeah, so just, I don't know, it'll be a couple minutes, maybe a little longer, and then I'll rewind back to your question about solitude or isolation. Moved around as a kid at, I don't know, 12 or 13. Parents got divorced. At 13, I started getting some stomach issues, and then I don't know, a year or 6 months later, diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I won't go and get into like the depth of it, but it sucked. It was difficult. It was different than most 14-year-olds going to high school. Your parents get divorced, you move. I ended up having a couple surgeries. Surgeries didn't go as planned. Everything worked out, but I wore a bag in high school, ileostomy bag. So again, feeling, you mentioned isolation. I don't know, from a young age, living with mom and dad, having two separate dads. I'm by myself with dad. At mom's, there's three stepbrothers. Nicole, it's almost like double lives. No one knows you have a bag. I think for me, some of the training early on, or some of what I realized was no one really knows what's going on with people. You could say somebody, it's really hard to really grasp or people really understand that these battles we have, we all have, they might not be as obvious as wearing a bag or as deep as things like this or parents divorce, but every single person has something. It just, sometimes it's hard to relate. And for me, yeah, going through all that at a young age, dude, no one at 15, 16, that's not what you're thinking about. That's not what you're going through. And
Yeah, I mean
so
everybody when they're that age has I mean everybody, like you said, they have their metaphorical bag, right? But to have that,
everybody.
yeah, to have that, I watched my brother go through not only the physical pain of all of this, right? Surviving just the physical, but what I didn't get to really get involved too much in was the mental and what it probably did to him, you know, how he probably felt different. He felt why do I have to go through this at this young age while everybody else is getting to live out their normal youth ages? And so with that, what kind of thoughts back then, obviously what you can remember, what kind of thoughts did you maybe have regarding the issue that you went through?
Now, afterwards, the bag came off at 17. My senior year, I was getting help recovering. And then, I made a choice. You could either be bitter about something forever or you could not. And being bitter is not, it doesn't help anything, and I was still young. And through my 20s, I had a ton of fun. And you mentioned, I didn't isolate. I was very, hung out and things like this, but it didn't get me ahead. And
Mm-hmm.
so then I realized some of these things, I ran marathons or boxed or got my master's. Like I had to find solitude and to do these things. And now it's almost habitual or a pattern or harder to do. Social media, I'm older. And so, yeah, some of the loneliness creeps in or isolation.
And now, how do you feel as how do you feel this affects more so of we're going to cater towards the men a little bit right now? How and maybe why do you feel that men continuously and all of us, I would say, fight this inner battle, this inner beast of the isolation beast? Why do you think it is that men in this society are unfortunate to have to deal with this?
Yeah, it is. I knew we were going to talk about it a little, and I did a little bit of digging, and Pew Research, take it for what you will, because stats are stats, but it says that 63% of men under 30 report being single, which is double the rate of women who are 34% at that age. So I do feel like a lot of men, especially younger men, younger than me, are gonna run in possibly to a loneliness. It's talked about from others, a loneliness epidemic. And maybe we're wrong. Who knows? You never could predict the future, but it's yeah. I'm in education. Some of it stems from education. I feel like a lot of men, this could be women too, but leave high school just lost or not sure, or they're told to go to college and it's not for them. And then it kind of builds maybe a lack of self-esteem or a lack of not knowing what to do.
Well,
I don't know what.
and I think that's exactly it. I think it goes back to those days. I think that from a young age in high school, we are taught to kind of be out on our own and get out there and do this by ourselves. And with that, we start to take on the role in everyday life, right? So now it starts to trickle. And now it's this war within ourselves that we handle everything solo. We do everything by ourselves. And we end up just now keeping quiet and knowing that this is just the new normal in life itself. I mean, now we have something where we can always isolate, right? We can
Some
always.
of it is some of it is maybe men's own fault. Some of it we're getting told by women, but it's like it's easy enough. It's easier and lazier to just swipe right on your phone than go out and meet and put yourself in awkward situations or meet women. And
Mhm.
we're all doing it. And we're human. It's just path of least resistance. We can swipe all these women and we don't get a ton of matches, but it's easier than going out
Absolutely.
and meeting. And there's less women out and there's less women for you to approach. I know we're going on an interesting, different, we're kind of pivoting here.
But it also keeps denial quiet, right? Meaning, okay, if you get denied on an app, it's in silence, right? You only deal with that by yourself. There's no embarrassment to it. While in person, I mean, it just makes that so much more simple, right? So and not only that, just the phone in general, when it comes to isolation, you can be in a
Yeah.
crowd. You
Yeah.
can be in a crowd of people, be on your phone, and still be isolated in a crowd of people. You see it all the time nowadays where people are out to dinner and instead of socializing, no, they're sitting on their phone, right? They're isolated again in their own thoughts in their own world.
So
That
some of it
all
is,
trickles into this.
yeah, some of it is a educate stems from a younger lack of confidence. Some of it is definitely, yeah, we can isolate so much easier. We don't need, I could order food. We could do whatever with our
Mm-hmm.
phone. We don't need a ton of, which is maybe not healthy. Not maybe, it's not the healthiest.
No, and I think it's actually going to get much worse when it comes to this isolation beast. I think unless, it starts to be something that people decide to work on, whether through therapy or communication or whatever it may be, this isolation beast is going to get louder and louder for many people, especially the youth, because guess what? It's all that they are going to know. they're not, it's going to be the new normal now. The new normal is going to be isolating through this technology. And so with that in mind, let's keep the technology in mind. With that in mind, what maybe can we do as a society or as men or as the youth or what it may be to maybe not allow this isolation beast to speak through our technology? You know, what are our guides or a tool that we can utilize to
So
stay
I
away
think
from
both
it?
both you and me would go to healthy habits, but a lot of healthy habits that we're going to have worked for you and me, because obviously I know you pretty well, are solo endeavors. You ran a triathlon, I ran marathons, I boxed. These are if you make a video now, you know you're being more social that because you have something. Where do I want to go with this? Some of the healthy habits that to work on yourself are things you do in solitude. However, the piece that's missing is the social aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the tips to give are go on a meetup or
Yes.
join a sports team or go find dodgeball or basketball. Somehow you have to including, these are tips to myself as well. Get a pet that you could go be social with.
Yeah, it's putting
The
yourself
men are
in
definitely
the
missing, and
environment.
women's a social. I'm big on, yes, going for a walk, going for a run, going to read, doing things. A lot of the things we do that are preached are things you do alone. But the piece we're talking about here in with isolation is you have to force yourself to put yourself in situations or
Yeah,
find the
and
right
I
group.
and I want to speak on that exactly what you just said is as a man and somebody that has really dove deep into trying to become a disciplined person and really create a very well rounded habits. Those things right there, they can seem like the best things to do at the time. For instance, working out every day. Now, I'm not telling you not to go do these things, but what I am saying is the stronger you build on these isolated things, the more of an isolated person you're going to actually become because you're building strength, but those strengths are actually building walls because now you're so tied up in doing these things. And so, what I love about flipping the script a little bit is technology could work in your favor. Like you said, there's apps out there such as Meetup where you can really put yourself out there to go. It's easier than ever, right? It's easier than ever these days. You get on the app, you put yourself out there, and to join a meetup, or if you're a young person joining a sports thing, it's just the camaraderie of having other people around you that can really help you, defeating or at least taming this isolation beast. And so when it comes to that, what are things that you have possibly done that get you out of that isolation? That what makes you feel good about putting this beast to rest?
All right. I also think there's some of us. I'm gonna say an example here. I teach. I moved to a different school. I go to happy hour with two women I used to work with. One's an assistant principal. One's an office lady. They're both married. They're about my age, a little older, and their husbands are about maybe in their early 40s. They both tell their wives it sounds terrible going to socialize at a happy hour, even though the three of us are friends. That's just not what they. Now they're married, they have kids, they've raised kids. There's something a little bit. We have to force ourselves to be social. It's something that was said I heard a long time ago is when you meet a woman, they force you. They're the ones that have the party to go to or somewhere to go to dinner.
Yeah.
It forces you to be social. So some of it is just inherent in men is that, or some of us at least, yeah, man, we don't want to go be social all the time. It doesn't mean it's healthy. It is important to do it some of the time, especially if you're feeling, I don't have kids. I'm not married, so I don't have those things at home. I do teach, which is nice. I read some of these things on being isolated in this. All day I'm with students, all day I'm with coworkers. So at least my job is pretty damn social. I'm
Mm-hmm.
communicating all day. I mean, literally all day. But yeah, that doesn't mean when I get home after my day, I'm not feeling, too bad there's not a family or too bad. So it is
Mm-hmm.
important if you don't have that. I'm not saying I'm the best. I haven't conquered it. I don't go out all the time, but it is smart to join a team. It is smart to find your people, whether it's Magic the Gathering, whether it's going on dog walks, whether it's you can't force relationships, but you can at least find your people. It does take effort. It does take getting out of your comfort zone.
And that's great. I love what you said. It's about finding your people, right? Because when you're around people that you don't feel comfortable with, or they don't have the same goals in mind, or it feels forced. And we're already in our day putting on so many different hats and so many different, we're already forcing so much, right? And so whenever, yes, the last thing you want to do, especially after a long day of work or whatever, is go out and have to force something
Oh yeah.
else, right?
I
So
want to flip it on you because
mhm.
you know, I'm not going to say you struggle with it, but you're a bit more social than me, but you also have done some you know, you're more isolated. What are some things you
Yeah.
suggest or some things that have worked, you know, or you wish you did?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the crazy thing is it's after over the years is whenever I've kind of become more isolated. When I was in college, it was
Oh
nothing
yeah.
but
Yeah, yeah, of course.
socialization. And then as I got older, I just felt like either I didn't fit in with the crowds I was hanging out with, or I felt like it was overwhelming due to the inner beast that I was already dealing with. And so I started to feel insecure.
And you know, as you get older, people are older, people have more responsibilities, people have kids, people have families, and so now there's less time, and you're working full time, whether that's 40 hours or 80 hours. It you are right. As you get a little older,
Yeah, and
it
it's
becomes a bit harder.
I also think as you become a little bit older too, you start to outgrow the people that you're with. And so one of the tools that I want people to understand is growth is an amazing thing, but you really have to audit everything about your life whenever you are growing because you do outgrow people and that's okay. But like you mentioned, the big one for me was finding my people. And my people are busy. You know, my people,
Nice, nice.
right? So, my people that I want to be around nowadays, they're growing, they're working, they are spending all their hours. And so, for me, my way of getting out of the isolation beast is setting up scheduled events that when the time is right, I will be able to unisolate myself. For instance, today, actually, literally just a couple hours ago, I just booked a trip to Tulum with two of my closest friends that I don't get to see all the time. They live in Northern California,
Where is Tulum?
Tulum, Mexico. And so that for me is something that's going to unisolate because now I have something to look forward to. I know that I will be able to charge up my social battery. So whenever I go on that trip, I'm all in. And so that's something that I utilize is it's not necessarily that I'm going out every night and I'm hanging out and I'm, you know, having drinks and like I did in college, but no, now it's I'm here to work and you know build what I'm building, but I'm going to be taking breaks. And so those breaks is where I really work on my social battery. And whenever I go
So
out there,
can I veer left for a sec?
absolutely, let's go.
Okay, so the other thing I read, which I don't think you and me struggle with a ton. So you mentioned like I do have some personal uh relationships. So for instance, you know about March Madness. I mean, I just saw people I've known for at the low end 15 years and at the high end almost 28 years. So we've kept in touch through fantasy sports. We've kept in touch through common interests. They've all graduated. They've all had families. You know, we've grown at a similar pace, I guess, you know, maturing and all this. But it is nice to have those people. You know, I have a buddy I talk to on the phone a few days a week. But what I'm reading is like, you know, 1 in 4 men say they don't have a close friend,
Yeah, well,
or men under 40 are twice as likely to have, you know, no friends, or
and
and you know,
how easy is it? This is the thing. Is what you just said was what was the percentage of men that don't say that they have a friend? One in
I mean, it
four.
says
So
1 in 4 under 40
yeah,
say
we're
they
looking
don't
at
have a close friend.
25% don't have a close friend. How
Yeah.
easy is it whenever you don't have that to just shut the world off? I mean, we have our own homes. We have somewhere to go. We have somewhere to hide.
No, I mean,
There's so many
it's so
things out
important.
there to hide with, right? So many people utilize video games, and I know you play, but not to the extent of some people utilize this as a tool to hide themselves in from the world. Instead of going out there and putting themselves out there, no, they stay home, they play video games. Instead of going out there, no, they stay home, they watch Netflix. And so there's just so much out there that we can utilize to almost put as a crutch or wear as a band-aid from really getting ourselves away from this isolation beast.
Also, I don't know what is there for men to go do together socially? There's not, maybe I'm wrong, you know, but it's not a ton of things like, oh, I'm looking for, besides sports. I mean, sports is one of the, and it seems like trading card games maybe. It's like, there's a reason those guys are doing that, or I do that, or other, you know, and it's like, where are you going to feel comfortable? Where is it worth going out? You know, you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. Because what's the normal? I mean, I'll tell you the normal thing for most men, and it's not the healthiest, is going to the bar, right? I mean, men are so we're
Men, I
so
mean, I would put women would go, yeah, there's a select few, there's a group, but bars are even less now. But sure, I agree with you.
yeah.
A bar is something to go do.
I'm so fixated though on, why are we going to the bar? Well, we're going to the bar to probably try to meet women, right? And so I think what you're saying is there's a miss on where men can go just to socialize and feel like they're kind of getting out of their bubble, if you will. And so it makes us stay really antisocial and to ourselves. And so it's almost becomes our second nature. And in your life, maybe touch base on things that holds you back. That what do you do that instead of getting out and socializing, what are things that you do to decompress, or whenever you get off of work, what are things that you're leaning more towards instead of getting yourself out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long day. You come home, sometimes I'll go work out or physical therapy or something after work, and then you're hungry after work, you eat, and then you just veg, you kind
Mm-hmm.
of just, I kind of I might do a few productive things, but for the most part, I'm just tired. It's a long day. I mean, even mom asked me, "Hey, Monday, you want to go see Carrot Top at 8 o'clock?" I'm like, "Dude, at 8 o'clock on a work night? No, I'm not. I'm not going to be in a good mood at 8 o'clock to go out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be tired. I have to wake up in the morning. I also have weird energy levels. I don't. Maybe everyone has energy, but depending on what I eat, my energy is weird. So, also, I think I am pretty good with. I do like alone time. It does recharge me. I'm a little more of an introvert. Some people might not like it, but it's also a balance of what's healthy. It is like I'm talking now, and yes, man, at this point it is. Luckily, I have some really cool coworkers. We go out. They are somewhat my people. But I need to find a little group, whether it's once a month I go on a hike with this group, or once a
Mm-hmm.
month we go to a dinner. Like, it is good to have what is it called? They say it's called a third place. Like in Friends, the coffee shop was a third
I love
place. They're
that.
saying a lot of us don't have, there's not a third place. And
Yeah,
so
it's
maybe
work
that's
and
what's
it's
healthy
home.
to find.
And so that's actually one of the tools that I kind of want to throw out there is, and I actually just started doing this for work purposes, but it feels right. And that's micro connections. And with micro connections, it's about starting small, about just putting yourself in an environment of other people, not even having to socialize, just putting yourself in an environment to be around people. So from now, instead of me sitting at home doing my programming, doing my invoicing, doing all this stuff that I do on the back end of my business, I put myself in a coffee shop. And now it just feels a little bit more, you feel a little bit more relaxed being around people. You see other people socializing. It kind of just gives you this aura to kind of put yourself out there
Yeah,
instead
at
of
least there's other people. Yeah, yeah.
instead of being locked
It's
up
healthy for you. It's
inside.
good for you.
Absolutely. And so with that, that's one tool to rebuild social confidence, if you will, because I think the more that we sit inside and the more that we just stay by ourselves, the more antisocial but even less confident we feel just being around people. For me,
Also, something I wanted to mention, I don't want to go too hard on it, but like there comes a point where you just feel let down by certain things.
mhm,
And so we're human and we learn, okay, we're not going to go where we keep feeling let down. And it's easier just to go, okay, I'm gonna, it's all me, I'm gonna
yeah,
go me. And so, yeah, it's almost a trap. I mean, it's a trap right now and I know, even, could you imagine working for $10 an hour? What's that going to buy you? I'm trying to think about younger people. It's like, it just, you feel let down in a lot of ways. And so it's easy to, hey, I got to rely on myself
but what you
and
said is very real, that we're almost tired of putting ourselves in situations to be let down. And whatever that may be, specifically for you, whether that's the dating world, whether that's in the just going out and wanting to socialize and being let
I mean,
down,
it
that
comes from being a kid. I think any kid that had their parents divorced and your family gets separated, it starts
hmm
then. I
hmm
mean, no one wants their family to break up. I'm not hating on anybody. It's common. More than half half of marriages fail. But
Correct.
even from then, it starts of feeling
Let down.
let down. Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very subconscious and subtle, but sure.
So, okay, so to spin this a little bit on a positive note, with being let down at a young age, which I'm sure, like you said, so many kids are, or so many young adults are, and we kind of build that grit and toughness inside of us, this thick skin. What maybe benefits come from that? What are
Well,
our
as you mentioned, you could build resilience. I'm gonna go back to choosing the bit. You could take the blue or red pill. You could be bitter about it, and the world's against you for your whole life, or you grow up. I mean, and it doesn't mean that you don't have chips of that on our shoulder, or it does
Mhm.
build walls. But there's one of two ways. I mean, you either use it to drive you, or you just use it as the world sucks.
And that's great because I agree. I think it helps build your resilience. It helps build your skills. It helps build your purpose, if you will. I think both of us sit here very purpose-driven people, and it's obviously I do think that our history as kids and young adults plays a giant role in that. And so I do think that with obviously learning to tame this inner beast to not allow it to put you in what we would call a depression, if you can learn to tame it and realize the good that comes from isolating, it's
I'll
just a
mention something that you just to tell like add on is that or just sparked a thought is for men and anybody, women as well, anybody, human, goal setting, it can get you out of a lot of funks. I mean,
Mhm.
goal setting is
Name a
is
couple for
purpose
instance.
driven,
What
but
are some goals that
I mean,
you've
it could be tiny. I mean, it could be
yeah.
tiny or big, but
Yeah,
it's
what
just
are some
important to
goals that
get your
you've
brain.
yeah, what are some goals that you
It could
have put in
focus
play?
on you could focus on eating better, you could focus on working out more, you could focus on taking a class, you could focus on volunteering, you could focus your goal could be go to the park twice a week. I mean,
Yeah.
it really can be anything, but
Mhm.
a lot of people scientifically, or at least from what I've read, goals are, especially measurable goals. Yeah, some people go their whole life, those the people that get stuck in the isolation's not good for them is there's just no goals. There's no
Mhm.
progressing. And isolation solitude could be good because you could progress this way, but you could progress with others too, of
Mhm.
course. But
No, I think that's
I think
amazing.
goal setting is another good tip. That's
I agree. And with that, so share with the listeners what are some goals that you've put in play for yourself that you believe that have helped you get outside of your isolation, right? It gets you this
okay.
is the thing
A
when you
lot of
set
my goals have been
but when you set a goal,
yeah.
it is, but it gets you out of your isolation cage, right? So let's say your home is your isolation cage.
All right, travel. Travel is a good goal. I mean, even if you do it by yourself, I mean, get you out of your makes you feel inspired, get you out of
Absolutely.
monotony.
Absolutely. I think it gets you out of your head. Jason he's trained boxing for a long time. Yes, it's a solo sport, but it
Yeah,
still
actually,
gets you
sure. Yeah.
it gets you out of your space.
No, and you give hugs to guys you spar with. You're
Mhm.
training with others. You're meeting other people. You might go to have grab a bite to eat after. You might go on a run
Absolutely.
with some people. So just getting out. As I did like how you mentioned, just is so easy and comfortable to be alone or
That's
to be
it.
at your house or
Hmm.
to be drowning out the noise because there's so much noise. But I do like how you said just be at a coffee shop with other people. Just it helps you remember to we're social,
And
even if you
so
say nothing.
this is a real quote, and it's a little extreme, but it does say comfort is where your goals go to die. And it's true. I mean, in a sense of goals take really getting uncomfortable and getting
I'm
out.
gonna, I'm gonna to the basics. I taught my kids last week courage, and as I was going through it, the biggest thing with courage, it's different for everyone, but it takes getting out of your comfort zone.
Hmm,
So it does take courage,
absolutely.
as little as it could be, to get out of your comfort zone of playing video games or avoiding conversations or keeping your head down.
Yeah, and I think it's about jumping into reality versus false reality, right? So, for instance, on TV, we get comfortable with watching others live because it's not our reality. It's not. We don't have to put any hard work in. We don't have to get uncomfortable. In a video game, it's the same thing. We don't have to get uncomfortable. Getting out in the world is uncomfortable, and growing is uncomfortable, and anything that
The
you're
only way to grow is to do things that are a little uncomfortable. So
exactly. Yeah.
but it doesn't make it any easier. Courage is still it still makes it, and I think just 2025 with all the stuff we have now, like it just doesn't mean it. It's easy for us to say, it doesn't make it easier, especially for guys or women that are just not, there's women introverts too, they're just not.
Yeah, one tool that has helped me is you really want to gauge and observe the patterns around you through other people. And that has helped me because isolation can be exactly that. You feel isolated. You feel alone. You feel like you're the only one going through it. You feel like, you're stuck in your ways. And so to view other people and realize that they kind of have the same tics that you do, that they kind of have the same that they're in the same motion that you're currently in. That makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with putting myself out there, knowing that, you know what, okay, both men and women. So if you're trying to get at a woman and you think, oh, I don't know how she's going to feel, or she might feel a little uncomfortable. And that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, right? Because it allows the tension to die, knowing that you're not the only one going through this. And so for me, I would say start paying attention to those around you. You'll realize that many are carrying the same weight that you are, and that for some reason feels a little bit safer. And so another one is hearing from other people. So for instance, a podcast or a good book on mental resilience or mental struggles. For instance, The Beast Within. This podcast here itself, you're hearing from everyday people who are going through the same inner beast that you're going through. And the people on this podcast are just people that are willing to open up to it, and they're willing to challenge it, and they're willing to tame it. Because my brother, for instance, here, bringing himself onto this podcast, he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to get uncomfortable to put himself out there and talk about this. He could easily just isolate. Right? This is the exact opposite of isolation. And so what maybe a good podcast or good books or good anything have you really dove into that allow you to feel a little bit more at ease?
Yeah, you mentioned good books. I think books are lost on a lot, and there's still, of course, people that read books. But every time you audiobook, read a book, you almost never regret it. And there's some books you put down because it's not for you, and that's fine too. So I wouldn't. I recently read a book on gut health and inflammation. I think it's called Good Energy. That was very good. There's other books like Tuesdays with Maury's, much different, but just any book, anything you find, I think it's always good. It helps your focus, helps you feel connected.
Yeah. And
Tons of podcasts out there.
What I love about books and why I've been a big reader is relatability.
Yeah.
Right? And so hearing from people that are so successful or so just in a great place. For instance, the creator of Nike. We see Nike as this giant, unbelievable brand that has been built, and without the underlining struggles that came with it. And a lot of his struggles were isolation struggles. A lot of his struggles was he didn't want to go out there into the world, but you know what? He did it anyways. He'd get on a plane and he'd travel across the world to meet with somebody that he's never met. And so he's taken those chances. And now Nike's obviously a very high up there platform, but if you want to build and you want to grow and you read this book, it's called Shoe Dog is the name of the book. And if you want to build, you got to follow in those footsteps, right? You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, books can be very relatable. As you mentioned, books, not to bring the teacher, I mean, I teach reading, but it's like reading a book builds so much, and it also builds a lot of people that read have more empathy because you get to live different lives. You get to put yourself in different shoes. You get to see different angles, and you just people that read tend to be more empathetic to situations, which is a good trait in my opinion.
And it's also it's a path to, I mean, it's they pave the path. Right? And so if you realize that they've taken these steps to get ultimately to where you want to be, you have to really step into. So that's what I love about it, especially for the isolation beast, is yes, reading is an isolation thing. Fair. But what it does is it paves the path. And so now if you want to follow in these footsteps to success, what do? You have to put yourself out of that isolation. You have to get out of the house. You have to go do X, Y, and Z.
And the other thing you just mentioned, I mean, isolation's not always a bad thing, I mean,
absolutely.
It can't always be, but a lot of healthy things come from solitude or isolation, but there has to be a balance.
And to not take this to a negative place, I want to try and put a good positive spin on it. But when we suffer, when we're suffering mentally, when we're not feeling good about ourselves, when we're insecure, when we're beating ourselves up, the easiest thing to do is to isolate. And we have this chip on our shoulder, if you will, and it's just this feeling of, I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to put myself out there anymore. I don't want
All right, so
to.
yeah, when people get like fall into depression or feeling sad,
Correct.
yes, it's much harder to be social.
And so, one thing that I want to throw out there with this is that you don't, to be strong, it doesn't have to be in silence. And so, I think that's one thing as men that we really hold on to, especially myself, is I feel like, oh, I got to do this all by myself. I got to battle this battle by myself. I got to get over this myself. Nobody's going to understand. Nobody's going to hear me. And so, true strength is knowing when to ask for help and when to lean on other people. And it shifts the mindset that isolation equals toughness. We want to get rid of that mindset. We don't want it to feel like I'm isolating myself because nobody's going to feel what I feel. They don't know my pain. And so what are things that people can do, whether it be therapy or something even a less, and the thing that comes to my mind is your close friends or family. Whenever I'm struggling, what do? I mean, me and my brother have had multiple conversations, have gone to multiple different levels. And so what I'm trying to get at is lean on other people. Allow other people to help you through this isolation versus fighting it by yourself. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm gonna use a weird analogy, but it's like, because I don't want to paint it in the back. I'm gonna think about like the old hardened cowboy. I mean, that guy is basically, he's roughing it. He's doing on his own. He has other cowboys, maybe other stops, other people, but you think he's not, he's by himself at this point. He chose this life on the road, this life of roughing it instead of settling down. And sometimes you look at that person at their life, it's like, okay, you respect that person, it's admirable. There's a form of like there's some sort of admiration to it. But on the other end, you feel sad for that person because that person didn't get to experience connections and certain aspects of life. So there's pros and cons to it both. But overall, I just think it's a better life experience. It's healthier to have the others. We don't have to live like a hardened cowboy anymore because that's not we don't have to go rough it. There is some noble qualities to people that can still, because it can be sad or defeating you could feel broken if you don't find, but if you move on and keep going even alone, there's some respect for that. However, if you're reading a story, yeah, you'd prefer to read a story as it's a better human experience if you do share it. That's opinion, I guess, but I do think I don't know if I answered your question, but that's it. It's not bad to always be alone. You just can't let it defeat you.
Yeah.
And keep pushing. And I do think there's some respect to that. However, yes, a life with connections and a life with relationships, friendships is a more whole life. It's a better experience.
Yeah, the next one I want to talk about here, and we'll wrap this up here shortly, but one I want to talk about is they say that it's lonelier at the top, right? And so it's the higher you grow in life, so think about climbing a mountain, right? The higher you climb that mountain, the less amount of people are going to be up there because they haven't taken that challenge
That's
on.
right. Less can relate to you, less people you could trust.
Yes, and more people that envy your life, so they kind of, what can I say? They resist against you, or they say poor things about you because they envy your life. They want the things that you have, and so what I'm trying to get by this is, no matter what level you're at, whether you're at the bottom of the mountain, whether you're at the top of the mountain, the goal will be to find the people who are at the same levels as you. And how do you do this? For instance, where I'm at right now on my mountain, the way that I do this is I get out with other people who are running a business. My life is very much built around running a business and the growth of my business. And so how do I do that? I go to business events. I go to monthly personal training events. I go to monthly business events on how to build your brand. And what does this do? This puts you in other like-minded people around you. And so my brother said it best earlier, is find your people. Well, my people right now are people that are doing what I'm doing. And what I want everybody to understand is your people are out there. You just have to go out and find what it is that they're doing. You're not going to find my people at the bar at 2 a.m. on a weekend. It's just not going to happen. You're going to find them at a social event. You're going to find them looking to better themselves or their business or asleep, right? And so find what your people, even if it's not where you're at now, where do you want to go? Really dissect your life and where do you want to go? Okay, well, where are those people hanging out? What are those people doing on a daily basis?
Another good one I would say that you've done and it's worked. I mean, it never happens in the time you want it to, but visualization, at least you're painting a picture in your head. You stick it, it could take years, there could be many failures in between, but having a consistent vision, most successful people, and I'm sure with, yeah, I visualized for years getting
So,
masters
I
or
mean,
being in Vegas. Took a long
exactly.
time, many failures.
What I would call it is just manifestation and putting. So I truly believe the energy that you give out, you get back. And so let's say you do put on your, what is it called, your vision board or whatever it is that you want to do. If you just want to write it on a piece of paper, whatever it is. But by putting the energy out there that I am going to accomplish this, or I am going to travel here, just putting that in your mind will create that. Your mind will bring that to reality. And so if your goal is to travel, well, guess what? That's breaking out of your isolation. Make sure that you put it out in the world that you want to travel. Like my brother just said, I mean, whatever you want to call it, manifestation or vision or whatever, energy is energy. Put it out there so that way you will subconsciously work at this every day. And in order to work at this, you got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to break the isolation beast. And so, anyways,
Which is
taming.
hard. I just want to make like it's not easy.
It is not easy, but I truly believe that these beasts that we overcome, it's not easy until it is. And what I mean
And
is,
talking about it, you mentioned having I mean, talking about it is good part of it.
absolutely.
It helps.
Even just this discussion here, me and my brother are sitting here having this discussion on this podcast. It opens up some things for me. It pushes me. I can now start to think about it because I've made it real. I'm putting it out there right now of things that maybe I'm fighting on the isolation beast. Okay, well, let me check in with myself. What can I do? Where can I go? What can I manage to do in order to break my isolation? And so that's the great thing about these inner beasts is so many people, if not all, are fighting them. We're all going through these inner beasts. And so to have a camaraderie and have other people engage with you on how to overcome it or how to make your life a little bit better will only help. And so with that being said, is there anything else you want to close out with or anything that I maybe have missed?
No,
That
it was a really good talk. I think we kind of went all over the place, so maybe, but yeah, I think it was a great talk. I also took off my glasses just so. Are we twins? How much everyone says we look alike.
I think there's definitely a lot of similarities. I think I got a little bit bigger of a nose and a noggin, but yeah, no. And so I want to close out with saying that the walls we build to protect ourselves can just as easily become the barriers that keep us trapped. Isolated might feel like control, but in the end, connection is what truly makes us strong. So please get out there, put yourself out there, give yourself a fighting chance to overcome this isolation beast. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with somebody you love. Look, your struggles are real, even if nobody else can see them. You're not lost and you're not alone. So choose to be around others. And until next time, give us a shout out on YouTube, social media. Thank you again, Jason, for being with us. Love you. And don't let this inner beast win. We'll come out stronger on the other side.